Dr. Welner, any way to institutionalize? Find them and get them out of society?
You can institutionalize people, but you can't keep them there unless they're an ongoing risk. I think a more appropriate way is to look at this as a homeland security issue. If there are people who are identified who are at higher risk, there's no reason that the country's intelligence services cannot work within the Constitution, utilizing forensic nurses or forensic social workers to just keep people connected, but as intelligence services can very gracefully do, watch when guns are purchased and other kinds of markers happen. I would encourage this.
We're going to do a whole show next week. We're going to have you all back on all of this concept of what to do about it, the mental aspect. Pat Brown, how come, if I come running up to you and say there was a mass shooting at a school somewhere, there's two things you know. It was not a black person, and it did not happen in Harlem or in a area where there are very much poor people. It always seems to be in an affluent area. It's Columbine or Virginia Tech. Why?
Well, I want to explain quickly something about the difference between a psychotic and a psychopath to answer that. A psychotic doesn't understand reality. A psychopath knows what reality is and hates it. So in each culture where you have psychopaths, they want to get back at society. And so each culture has its own way of getting back. I think when you're talking about an area, a very urban area, getting back may be being part of a gang. Being out in the rural areas, then you've got what we see more like here. And if you go overseas, where you've got political issues, then you say, hey, being a suicide bomber is the thing to do. But it's your vengeance and your anger towards society, but everybody's got their own fantasy that they grew up with.
Dr. Lipkins, how come it's never a woman?
I don't know. You know, that's a good question. But I think that we shouldn't argue about his diagnosis. We should really try to take mental health out of the closet and start to discuss it in a reasonable way and realize that our children are in pain and we need to fix the system.
We don't do that?
No, we don't. We have a broken mental health system, I'll guarantee you that. And we have students across the country in high school and college who are in pain and don't have enough services.
That seems idiotic.
It does.
I mean, doesn't the counselor see it?
There are not enough counselors. They're overwhelmed. More and more kids are going to college with pre-existing emotional disturbances. They're medicated for depression and anxiety. Everybody has sleep disorders.
In my son's elementary school, a public school in California, if the counselor or anybody sees any kid act in any way that might be aggressive, a little out of the way, they call you in.
Well, that's a school issue, and campuses haven't had to deal with this in the same way high schools have. I want to touch on Dr. Lipkins' point and also Pat Brown's quickly. First of all, in my professional opinion, with the endowments that schools have, millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, they can finance adequate school mental health services. And as for the women question, the problem with our society is that male role models focus around destructive power. There's nothing about femininity that relates to destruction. But when you have Rambo and the progeny of Arnold, you have guns and masculinity and identity.